Hey, welcome back to another video. This time we're going to be talking again about the IDW Sonic comics, and we'll be talking about issue 4. So this issue, maybe I'm sounding like a broken record, very much still similar to the first 4. Basic, Sonic rolls into a town, fights some badniks, meets up with some friends, and then they banter, and then the issue ends. But this time, instead of meeting up with just an old friend like Amy or Knuckles or Tails, in this issue, Sonic meets up with a new character, Tangle, who had been advertised a little bit before the book started, and people have been pretty excited. He also meets up with Blaze, who is less the focus, but a lot of people seem very excited about Blaze coming back and being properly introduced this early into the book, which is nice. But the focus of this very much is on introducing Tangle and getting her established in the universe. And I think a lot of people were kind of nervous that she would end up being sort of a clone of Sally from the Archie book, and it seems like that is not the case. Sally was very serious, kind of a stick in the mud sometimes. Tangle is very much not that, very goofy, not quite to the same, like kind of goofy and snarky, not quite to the same level as Sonic, but still very much not a serious character, at least not yet anyway. She hasn't had a whole lot of development, and we don't really have any backstory for her yet. But just from this first issue, I really enjoyed Tangle. A lot of good moments, some very entertaining faces that I think I'm going to get a lot of mileage out of. So far, just a fun character that I hope we see more of. Blaze also very much acting like she normally does, very kind of cold, stoic. Not much to say there, but I could see her interactions with Tangle working out to be very interesting, because Tangle seems to very much admire Blaze, much in the same way she admires Sonic, but their two very different personalities I think could lead to some really, really fun moments, maybe some good team-up issues, but I think it could be interesting in the future, and I hope we get more of Tangle. I imagine we will, because for the most part, Ian Flynn is not really the kind of writer to introduce a character and then never do anything with them again. That did sort of start to happen in the Archie book after the reboot, but I think that was more just a scramble to try to get storylines done and development happening, and then the book was canceled. Had the book not been canceled, I think a lot of the new characters that were introduced post-reboot would have been revisited and would have been used more often, but as it stood, a lot of them just ended up appearing once or twice, and then that's it. But I think with a more seemingly permanent run, we'll be getting a lot more of Tangle. Before we move on to the art, though, I want to talk briefly about a sentiment that sort of happened, that was sort of present when people were talking about the Archie book, but I've seen a lot more lately. It's not an omnipresent thing. It's not a thing that a majority of people seem to hold, but it is a thing that I have seen, and that is criticizing the Sonic comics for introducing new characters. I've seen people say that at that point, it becomes glorified fan fiction, and they have plenty of game characters that they should be using, and that there's no reason to introduce new characters. And I think that is a complete load. Yes, there are a lot of characters in the games, but you have to keep in mind that when you're looking at a long-running book, let's say for the sake of argument that the IDW book lasts for 300 issues. The games have maybe a grand total of 30 or 40 usable characters that people really care about and that you could really do stuff with. For 300 issues and well over 20 years, 30 characters really isn't a whole lot. You look at a book that's even been around for 20 years, or especially something that's been around for something as long as, say, Amazing Spider-Man. If you counted up every character in that, there's a cast of hundreds. With only a very limited pool of characters like the games have, you're going to run stagnant on stories fast. So you need to introduce new characters to keep things interesting, new dynamics, new possible stories to tell with those characters. So when I see somebody that says, oh, well, they shouldn't have introduced Tangle because now it's just glorified fanfiction, I see somebody who doesn't really understand storytelling, and granted, I'm no master at it. I'm not a storyteller, but I know some of the basic elements, and I know that with a limited pool of characters, you can only stretch them so far, and at a certain point, you're gonna need to introduce new characters just to shake things up a little bit. Perhaps they could have waited to introduce Tangle, but I think it doesn't really affect much of anything that she's introduced this soon. Really, if anything, it just helps get helps establish more of how Sonic acts with a new character. Because if you're familiar with Sonic, you know how he interacts with Sonic, or you know how he interacts with Tails, you know how he interacts with Knuckles. But with a new character, this is you get to see how he interacts with somebody completely brand new. It's something that shakes things up even for new readers, or for old readers, because they're used to what's basically going on right now. But introducing a new character will show them a thing that they are not used to. So it's there are definitely probably cons, I guess, to introducing a character this early. Perhaps gives off the vibe that maybe they're not 100% certain on the cast that they currently have available to use. But personally, I don't really think it has that. I think it's just introducing a new character for the sake of introducing a new dynamic for old fans to latch onto to make the book not feel completely stagnant this early on. So, moving on to the art after that little rant, this issue is drawn by Evan Stanley. Evan Stanley also did work on the Archie book, and much like all the artists that we have seen for these first 4 issues, she has a very different art style from what we've had, but it's still one that fits really well for the book. I don't know quite how to describe it. It's a little bit more realistic than the previous art styles we've had that have been a little bit more cartoony, a little bit more anime-esque. This is a little bit more, like I said, realistic, but realistic is probably not the best word to use when you're describing a book about a talking blue hedgehog, but that's probably the best way to put it. A little more detail, a little more shading, a little more just things that you would see in a natural environment as opposed to something like, say, Jennifer Hernandez's art from the last issue, which was very bright and cartoony and very, not really hyper-detailed, as it were. For me, Evan Stanley's art can be hit or miss. There were issues back in the Archie book where it looked really good. There were issues back in the Archie book where it looked kind of eh. In this case, this is a time where it looks really, really good. Sometimes faces look a bit strange to me, but in one case that's intentional, and other times it's really just a minor nitpick. Never do they look completely unnatural or like nightmare-inducing. There were really weird and there were really weird faces before. Tracy Yardley has occasionally put in some really, really weird faces. No artist is really impervious to them. Yeah, in general, I enjoy Evan Stanley's art. I don't think I have much else to say about it. I think it works for the book, but it is not, personally, it's not one that I'd want to see every issue, much as I do enjoy it. Overall, I think the 4th issue was probably the best that we've had so far. I do think that maybe it's getting a little stagnant in these first 4 issues, but considering how how this issue ends with the hints towards the actual plot starting next issue, I think we'll be moving out of the roll into town, fight bad, Nick meet character, leave formula. I think it was just done, as a quick way to establish things early on, and it worked, although I could, like I said, I saw people who were sick of it. I could see if it continued getting really sick of it, so hopefully things will change past that, but I think it, still this issue with introducing Tangle and doing things a little bit more differently, shook it up enough to keep it from getting completely stagnant. I mean, this is the longest I've talked about a single issue, so granted, a lot of that had to do with a rant about characters, but still, I think that's, regardless, shows that there's a little bit more interesting in this than, say, the last issue. And with that, the weekly issues for the book have wrapped up. Starting next month, the book is completely monthly, and I believe the 5th issue comes out May 25th, so it's going to be a little bit before I am able to talk about IDW Sonic again. However, the next video I have planned after this is probably going to be Toku related, and then after that, I'm thinking about doing a video related to the Archie Sonic book, maybe reviewing an old story arc, maybe just talking about some of the really weird things that happened in it. I don't know, but I can guarantee you that before IDW Sonic number 5 comes out, there will probably be a video focused on Archie Sonic, and I might make it a regular thing. Don't know how regular. I don't want to back myself into a corner or promise a thing I can't deliver on, the Doctor Who videos, but it might become a regular thing. If you enjoyed, then you can subscribe and hit that little bell icon, and hopefully YouTube will tell you when I've uploaded a new video, but if and when they don't, you can follow me on Twitter, where I always post when I upload a new video, and if I don't forget, the most recent video is always the pinned tweet on my profile. Also on my Twitter, I'll tweet about things that I'm reading or watching or playing, so you can kind of get a sneak peek of the videos I might be making, if you, for whatever reason, care about that. But I also just sort of tweet about Toku on there, so if you want to see me just ramble about things, That's there in the description, as well as my Patreon, which I essentially use as a tip jar. Alternatively, if you are new or you just want to watch some of my older videos that you may have missed, then on screen right now are two of them. On the left is the last video I did, and on the right is a video that YouTube has decided it wants you to watch. That's all for now, and I will see you guys next time.